all of the problems in the world are caused by the fact that most people cannot sit alone in their room by themselves for 30 minutes.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Jeff Heilman Project. We are going to talk about something that I think is near and dear to my heart, believe it or not, because I was an only child who grew up in an environment where I had a lot of time on my hands. It was actually pretty quiet back then in the 80s, early 80s. Do you remember back when there was
Before cable TV.
Oh my God, yeah. There was PBS.
There's like nothing to watch. There's like Donahue.
Yeah.
That's it.
Or soap operas, which my mom
Even
never
worse.
let me.
Yeah.
Which
Soap
my mom
operas, which
never
ought to be
encouraged
outlawed.
me to do.
Yeah.
And then once, I mean, like we're, you know, I'm not going to throw Captain Kangaroo under the bus, but like this is, we're
Maybe
talking
his haircut.
back the good old days with Romper Room, and so there was a lot of free time, and so
Dialing for dollars,
Yeah.
and the afternoon movie. Yeah.
Yeah, so the topic of today's conversation is the importance of boredom, and it's funny because recently I did do 25 days challenge to be off of social media completely. So this is actually a timely podcast, because since I did that, you know, when you take doom scrolling out of your diet, your daily diet, so I was off of Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Those are the only three that I was being actively engaged on. I didn't really consider YouTube as social media because I know some people scroll through it, but I don't. I've only ever gone specifically to YouTube and watched my favorite, YouTubers. So there was a lot of time to be bored because I wasn't scrolling and I wasn't taking,
Whoa, tell me about the experience. What?
Well, imagine taking all of the time that you normally go on social media and having to do something else. And so that was where it was like, okay, well, I'm not on, normally what I would be doing right now before bed is, thumbing through reels. So I can either go to sleep or read a book or maybe watch something. I tried to replace scrolling with texting a friend. Maybe I'll just reach out to somebody and say, hey, or going in person and meeting with a friend and having coffee. I did have a coffee date,
Brianna.
which I don't normally, I don't necessarily normally have in-person coffee dates, but we did that instead. I did find myself on Zillow a lot because I'm scrolling through houses. Okay, I'm getting my scroll fix because I'm looking at houses for sale or houses for rent. Just what's going on in my neighborhood. So there was a little bit of that dopamine hit of scrolling, but I think that for me growing up, necessity was always the mother of invention. Creativity was always a product of being bored. And I can remember even raising our own kids many times being, them coming to me bored and saying, great, this is an opportunity for you to come up with something to do. What are you going to do with that? And so I think that it is difficult today when there's always something, if you don't ever get bored. If you never allow yourself to get bored, then, what are you going to, where's the creative coming up with something to do? When you were a kid growing up and you got bored.
I played with dirt.
You would probably call a friend or go out in the neighborhood or ride your bike.
I'd ride my bike over to a friend's house and we'd go play baseball or soccer or football. I had a friend that his dad had built kind of like the frame of a small 2-story house in their backyard that just had, it was a fort. It was a 2-story fort, but it had, a solid wood foundation, kind of like what we had around here. Plywood floors and plywood walls and a window cut out and a staircase, and we'd go play in his fort all the time. We played in that fort for years. From the time we were probably 6 or 7 years old until almost till we were in high school. So it was probably, I'm guessing now, it's probably 200 or 300 square feet upstairs. No, it's probably like 300 or 400 square feet upstairs and 300 or 400 square feet downstairs. Like it would fit in the center of this garage with, maybe 10 feet on each side.
And it was just empty, like you
Just
kids
empty. Yeah, it was just like a small framed house that just had stairs and a floor upstairs and a floor downstairs and a couple of windows and a roof.
And I say it was just empty in awe because it would take about 2 minutes for us to fill anything like that. Just because of all of our stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there was like a
because-
chair upstairs.
I mean,
or
for
10 or
us,
something.
we'd probably be we'd have somebody living in it by
we
then. So to have something empty is pretty cool, and that your imagination can go
But we did.
wild.
I remember being a kid and like I'm bored and I want to go somewhere, so I'd get on my bike and I'd go for a bike ride somewhere. Played baseball, played soccer, played Nerf football a lot, and then we played football in the street. Telephone pole to telephone pole. There wasn't anything on TV to watch unless it was prime time. If it was, you'd have cartoons on Saturday morning when you're a kid, but like what does TV do for you with no channels when you're a kid during the day, or like after school? Sometimes they'd have cartoons on after school, cartoon classics or something, but there was nothing to watch. It was just like Oprah.
I remember doing a study early on when I was homeschooling the kids about the times of innovation and how it correlated to when, like if you look at through history, the amount of inventions within a certain period of time. And that certain period of time typically was pre-electricity even. Like it was I was looking at it specifically because it seemed to predate the mandatory requirement for kids to be in school. That came out about in the 20s when it became necessary, like it was government mandated for kids to be in some form of school. It was no longer obligatory. It was mandated. And then you look at so now you're in an environment where all of the kids are being placed into an environment to where they're being taught. They're not actually being allowed to explore and to do things on their own. Before school became mandated, you were usually in an apprenticeship or your parents were teaching you, or if you were the butcher's kid, you learned how to be a butcher. So it was a lot more hands-on exploring and probably a lot of boredom because there's no electricity and you've only got a certain amount of hours that you can get anything done. And then you're being trained, like someday, kid, you're going to have to grow up and make money for your family. So what are you going to do? And so there's so much creativity that comes out of free time. And I think that that's what ends up, people say, that's what I was faced with being off of social media for 25 days is free time. And then if you get bored in your free time, first of all, society today seems to have no free time. We get more and more, we get more and more shortcuts, and we're supposed to have all of these things that are supposed to be able to help us get time, but then we have no free time left, which is kind of a conundrum.
Well, yeah, I think we bleed out. Time on our phones.
Yeah.
I think we bleed out 10 or 12 hours a day on our phones.
So if you certainly don't have any free time, you're certainly not getting bored. You're not allowing
you're not
yourself to
getting
get bored.
I
And
agree.
then the creativity from there goes like way down. Which is why I see people like, the billionaires and the multimillionaires and the Jesse Eislers and these people going off on these like excursions to the woods where there's nothing, and there's, they have these adventures into nothingness. There's no television. There's all these rich people that make all of this money so that the only thing that they have to do is be placed in an environment to where they have all the free time so that they can get bored. It's like they create an environment.
They create environments to get bored.
They
go hunting, or they go fishing, or they'll just go mountain climbing. But I think that I remember listening to David Allen talk one time, and he said, if information overload was a function of information, every time you walked out into nature, you would spontaneously combust. Because there's more information coming in the form of nature than anywhere else. And he says what you have is you have meaning overload.
That's good.
You have an overload of data that doesn't necessarily mean anything. And that's what keeps us from getting bored, to where we're like little rabbits, pushing on our little rabbit pellet levers, trying to get our next hit of dopamine, versus going outside where it's very relaxing. Sometimes I'll just go for a drive.
Yeah.
And to me, that's very relaxing. It's a way of letting my mind think. I know you spoke of Jesse Itzler. His wife, Sarah Blakely, talks about the fact that she goes for a drive when she needs to get ideas too. And I didn't know that until I listened to her masterclass. But I was just going through, and I'll see if I can find a link to it. I was just going through a study of the benefits of boredom and why it's really important. When we look at all human behavior is literally a function of chasing dopamine. Huberman talks about that, and it's a feeling. You don't want to get rich so that you can be rich. You want to get rich so that you can have dopamine. You want to get rich so that you can buy drugs so that you can have dopamine. You can buy food so you can have dopamine. You can have sexual attractiveness so that you can have dopamine. It's all a function of chasing that dopaminergic high or low. And I think what boredom does, and the reason why it's so important, is it actually allows your dopamine levels to either come down if they're too high or come up if they're too low to a normal, stabilized amount. And you need some dopamine. If you get it flooded, if you get dopamine flooded in your system overnight, it seems that drugs like crack or crystal methamphetamine, I don't know, 8-ball, whatever, heroin, they flood the system with dopamine and they give you this total sense of calm, peace, and then the dopamine fades from your bloodstream and then you crash because there's no dopamine left in your system. And that's where you start getting suicidal. Like people who have no dopamine in their system, you can have well-adjusted, wealthy, successful, loved, happy human beings. Huberman talks about that too. He talks about he had been in the hospital for something and they had given him some kind of med, and he knew for a fact because of his chem background that med literally strips the body of dopamine over a period of 30 minutes or an hour. And he said he saw them put that in the syringe and he read it and he goes, that's not right. And then he literally goes to the nurse and he says, I need you to put me on suicide watch effective immediately. And she's like, what are you talking about? And this drug at this time put in my system. She goes, oh my God, that's basically the wrong stuff. And he said it was the most horrible feeling. It literally had dopamine chemically stripped from his body in a period of 30 minutes. It was just, nightmares and demons and devils and thinking he was going to die or kill himself. He just anything to get away from this horrid state. And all it was is you just didn't have the happy juice that your body craves, right? And so we become chemically dependent on these external forces to give us the highs and lows on dopamine. And it leads to a lack of a sense of uncertainty and a lack of control. And so boredom is really about allowing your body to naturally return to that so that you have some dopamine in your system so that you're hungry to go out and do things, but that the levels don't get out of whack. Blaise Pascal, who mathematician, famous for all kinds of great advancements in advanced mathematics, said all of the problems in the world are caused by the fact that most people cannot sit alone in their room by themselves for 30 minutes and just sit.
I believe it.
And I think that he's onto something there. So if I can find the study that I was just going through on boredom within the last couple of days, I'll make sure to include that. But I think from a dopaminergic lens, boredom is very helpful. The other thing that it does is Thomas Edison was adamant about the fact that he would charge his mind toward a certain picture or a certain ideal, and he would exhaust every possible way of getting to that outcome, and then he would go and rest and take a nap. And he would take a penny, and he would take a plate, and he would hold his hand gently over the plate to where when he drifted off to sleep and dropped the penny would hit the plate, and that would be his alarm, and it would wake him up. But it gets into a theta state of thinking where your mind is more adaptive to ideas in the form of hunches, that the subconscious and the conscious mind connect together. And some people, not everybody, but some people would believe that the human being's subconscious mind is connected somehow spiritually to all intelligence. And I've certainly had ideas when I was very relaxed, very tranquil, after exhausting every possibility consciously of bombarding my mind with a certain image, to where when I relaxed and I stepped away from it and I wasn't focused on it, almost like rods and cones in your eyes when you walk into a dark room, you pick up the peripheral better than the direct because of the way that your eyes are designed. I think that the conscious and the subconscious mind working together pick up the peripheral much better when we're bored, and can get ideas in the form of hunches to show up as pictures in our subconscious.
As you were talking, I was thinking about the importance of boredom when it relates to exercise and physical exercise, because for me, for example, if I'm running, and there were some times when I'd be trying to run, like 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles. When you're long distance running, you get bored. I mean, you're like, okay, like this is getting boring. And so as you're bored while you're exercising, you begin to set my little goals. Like, well, okay, well, this is boring, but I know I have, 5 more miles to go, or I know I have 3 more miles to go. I'm going to run to that telephone pole. Yeah. And then you begin to set little triggers and little games. You start playing these little games to get your body tricked into releasing some dopamine, but you would have never begun to be able to successfully manage the dopamine hits the challenges and the little games, had you not allowed yourself to get bored.
Yeah.
And it's the same when it comes to lifting. Once you can only lift, you can only do squats every day or every other day until eventually you're going to get bored. You're going to be like, well, shoot, I'm not seeing the results I want or whatever. Or like I've done it, 30 days in a row and I need to do something else. I got to do arms. I got to go, and so when we allow ourselves to get bored, I definitely think that our ability to become creative and our ability to begin playing games or saying, I'm only eating chicken breast. I need to lose weight, so I'm on a low-fat, low-carb diet. Well, that's going to get, if you don't, I guess my point is that unless you allow yourself to do it for long enough to get to the point to where it gets boring, you won't ever have to reevaluate. And I think the importance of being bored is that it puts you into a position of reevaluating your current situation.
Yeah, I think that's possible. Yeah.
And so in the reevaluation, you say, well, I'm not at my goal yet. Do I want to continue down this path? Or do I want to go down a new path? And then you begin charting new, synapses in your brain because you've allowed yourself to do something so often that it has now become boring to you. And then you can either quit or you can create a new channel and a new direction because you allowed it to get to the state. And I just don't find very many people who are willing to do something long enough for it to get boring. Like the first hit of just getting disinterested and they, pull the ripcord and it's like, no, wait, you gotta get bored with it first. Like keep doing it. Keep tending the garden until it gets so routine that it becomes boring, because then when it's boring, because you've got it so well covered. For example, last night, our pastor was giving a sermon and he was talking about change, because this month is a month of change. And he was talking about Dr. Cho, Dr. Cho, who was the founder of the largest church in South Korea. And was it 5 years, Andrew? I think he said. He said every 5 years he would take the department leads into their office, because the department leads had gotten, right when they had gotten all of their departments organized and structured in exactly the way that they wanted them, Dr. Cho would say, okay, well, you're no longer in charge of that department. You're now in charge of that department. You're no longer in that department. You're now in charge of that department. And so he would take all of his key leaders and he would assign them all new departments.
Wow.
And then that was it. Like, no longer. It'd be like, okay, Jeff, you're no longer doing your job role. You're going to do her job role, and she's going to do your job role after a 5-year period of time once you've gotten all of your departments flowing like clockwork. And I think that that's important. I think that because when we become lackadaisical, because we have one of two options. You're either going to get bored, and so now you're going to coast, or you're going to get bored and you're going to have to shake things up. So I think boredom is very important when it comes to growth and where we're going. But if we never allow ourselves to get bored, and if we certainly don't allow ourselves any free time in order to get bored.
Yeah, I think it's the longer that I live, the more I realize that the key to balance on a bicycle is forward motion. There are times when I will work 72 hours with a couple of naps in between. There are times when I go away and I stick my phone in the car and I don't talk to anybody for 3 days and I just chill in a hotel room at the beach or in the desert. I haven't been away in a while and I can feel it. Yeah. I can feel that I went hardcore in March to close.
And I'm always encouraging you to go away and stay away until you get bored. When you're bored of being on quote unquote vacation, then you can come back.
Then you can come back, right?
Just go until you're bored.
But however many years ago it was, I think it was 2008, I started going away every 90 days or so for a couple of days. And I would just sit there. And sometimes I'd scroll on my phone and I would just binge watch stuff, or I would doom scroll, or I'd go out, I'd bed rot, or I'd read, or I'd paint, or I'd just sit in a bath, for 2 hours and just watch documentaries or something, just to take my mind off of work. And I think you can be bored watching TV. I get bored of watching TV for sure. But I was talking to my buddy Brock Weiss yesterday on the phone, and we were talking about how we went day drinking in Santa Fe a couple of years ago and how much fun we had. We just died laughing, and we're like, I was just saying I got to go down and see my mom again. And he's like, well, make sure we do it in the second half of December so I can, be on the way. And so we're looking at that. I'm looking at flying home from Albuquerque, like around Madelaine's birthday, because she's on the 15th. But I'd like to go see my mom and just spend time in nature and walk. And people, do we really need a podcast about like walking outside?
There's a lot of podcasts regarding walking, but
well, I know, but like, do we need to talk about walking on our podcast? But when you look at the types of things that you can do that are really playful, that are really relaxing, that take you out of your regular stuff on a regular basis, it changes. Like, I will get ideas on breakthroughs, on systems, on things that I'm trying to do that I could work on for years and not get results. And then I'll go for a walk and I'll get some download, some nugget of little thing that I could do that makes things a little bit easier. And so to me, it's about the shift in polarity. It's in that bicycle shift in polarity to where if things aren't working, if you're working away at something and things aren't working, then try a totally diametrically different approach. And sometimes in the area where we're focused and we're doom scrolling and we've got stuff scheduled on the weekends and soccer practice and ballet and first chair violin and all these things for the kids, sometimes it helps to shift the polarity to the opposite side and say, it's not that filling your life up is bad, or that you have kids' activities and that's bad. It's just that sometimes we get running so hard in our heads that stepping away from that for days or weeks at a time is really necessary. And that concept of a sabbatical can be really helpful. I remember in 2017, I had a job working for IBM and I could work remotely. It was great. And I had a huge paycheck. I had several $100,000 in cash. And I didn't have the confidence that I could actually take time off, but I could work from anywhere. So I just relocated to a golf course. I was gone for like 3 weeks. It was like 2 or 3 weeks. It was a while. And there were tournaments to play in, and I could hit balls every day, and I could practice. And I still remember I've never felt so free in all my life than I did in March or April of 2017, where I had all that money in the bank, and it was just freedom. I could do whatever the heck I wanted to do. I was in a hotel room, and I'd go get a massage, or I'd go play golf, or I'd go hit golf balls. And, there was still some work to be done, but it was nothing like the pace that I've been doing recently. It was just like a complete reboot on life. Going and spending that time in Orlando at the time is where I was at the Champions Gate, the Omni at Champions Gate. If you guys want to look that one up online, the Omni at Champions Gate was a great. There was a David Ledbetter golf school there with lessons and a stadium lighting putting green that you could go out in the middle of the night and putt till your heart's content. So that was. Those are really good times when it's not just vacation. Sometimes it's not a vacation, it's not a staycation, it's like a boardcation.
Yeah. And we would like to encourage you who are watching to let yourself get bored maybe this weekend. If the weekend's coming up for you when you're watching this, if you can, turn off the devices, like phone devices. Maybe you get bored watching TV. Get bored with the family. See what happens. It's funny how when you finally get to the beach, and then you let yourself get to that point where you get to the, okay, now what? That's when the magic happens, and that's what we would encourage you to do. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, liking, subscribing, sharing, all of those amazing things to help the Jeff Heilman Project get going. And we are so glad that you were here.
Thanks for tuning in.
See you next week.